Good evening once again. How nice to be able to welcome you to a new series, yet another new series of Call My Bluff, which features, as ever, the Mr. Chips of the panel game, Frank Muir.
My first guest is a great favourite with us on the programme and with the viewers, and she's back again, this time with a different haircut, because she's now the Avengers girl, but underneath it all, it's still Joanna Lumley. My next guest isn't a favourite yet, but it's his second time on the programme. Man of the arts and of the chat, Russell Harty.
And the original racing pigeon, Patrick Campbell.
Good evening. And my first guest, well, she's simply everything. She's beautiful. She's an actress. She writes books for children. She's a mother. She's even married. Nanette Newman. And the other one is even more so, because he's not only an actor and a writer, but he's a producer and a director. And he's a father. He's married to Nanette Newman. This is Bryan Forbes.
The old magic's still there. We ring the bell and we get the word Ulacan, and as you know, it'll be pronounced umpteen different ways, but it'll be defined 3 different ways. 2 of the definitions are false ones. 1 is true, and that's the one that Patrick's team is going to try and find out. So tell us about Ulacan, Frank.
Have you ever wondered how peasants got about in Kamchatka? Kamchatka's that bit in Russia which hangs over the north bit of Japan. How do they move around? Well, what they did was they put sort of wooden things up and covered them with hides stitched together, and they put those on a platform with a wheel either side, and in front of that they put a horse, and they dragged along this wagon. Tremendously enterprising, and they called this wagon an Ulacan. Yeah.
Next. A horse in Outer Mongolia.
Nice sober start. Russell.
Yes. If you were sitting ever in a darkened wigwam in the north of America, i.e. if you were an American Indian sitting in a wigwam, and you wanted to bring light into that kind of encircling gloom, you could light the end of your Ulacan. Which is, in fact, a very oily, large fish found in, as you will not be surprised to hear, North American rivers. And the Indians took the fish out of the river and they dried it. But even when it was dried, it was so oily that you could light the end of it to darken your wigwam withal.
Right, Joanna Lumley.
It was possibly to the tinkling of an Ulacan that early Persian poets composed some of their better works. Loosely strung like a xylophone, these metal oblongs are linked together side by side, and when the wind blows through them, they produce a not unharmonious concatenation of sound.
Bong ding doing. Bong bong bing doing.
You see?
Ding dong.
Well, it was not any elegant. We got the statutory Persian in because, you know, you don't know where you are until that's been said. But anyway, it's a Kamchatkan wagon. It's an oily fish, and it's a Persian musical instrument without which no game of Call My Bluff is complete. Patrick.
Well, there's deep difficulty here, isn't there? Strung as loosely as a xylophone.
No, loosely strung, comma, like a xylophone.
She refuses to
But it
split
has
the
no
end of it.
strings on a xylophone, does it?
It's strung, though, you.
Strung.
The bits of wood have string going
They're all
through.
very highly strung. Receiving
A burning fish. You dry a fish and light the other end of it.
What other end? I said the tail end of it.
Don't
Dry.
argue with him. Don't argue with him.
Just a moment.
Beyond it.
A little conference.
About a quarter of an hour.
Any member of the audience can whistle or play a tune. I want to be
it's just a
happy.
Well, we've got 2 hunches here. We've got 3 hunches pretty well.
All different.
All different hunches. I believe that it's this awful It's a charming thing about the Persian music.
Yes, it was Joanna, wasn't it? You said that. Is it true or is it a bluff? Tell us now.
Yeah.
Oh, no. No Persian musical instrument is ever true on this programme until the odd occasion when it is. But who gave the true definition?
You'll never believe it.
The end of my
It's true. It's an oily fish which is very good for setting fire to. 1-0, and we have ink or Inca. Patrick.
It's called inky.
Yes, that's correct.
A Devonshire word. Before they built the jetties and the groins.
What?
A groin is a sea wall rather than. Yeah.
Like you have a mole on your groin.
Before they built these jetties and groins off the coast of Devon, they got inky up to their armpits. Seaweed, ton after ton of it. Seaweed. It's floating vegetation, and they call it inky.
Well, where does the groin come in?
It keeps it off from the jetty.
I think it now... Oh,
You've got all that down, have you?
Yes. I think we should
wouldn't like
play
to say
something
anymore.
else with the remaining time.
I think we ought to have Bryan Forbes now.
Well, an inky was a medieval rude look. A dirty look.
Do it.
A basilisk grimace to sort of discomfort and wither someone. I mean, in later years it was perfected, even patented by Robin Day. But to go further back in time and to quote from Caxton's, what was it, Jason, he said, "Why, certes, madam, the inky of your eyne hath hurteth me unto death."
You've got everything medieval in there, absolutely everything. Yes, indeed. Nanette, your go.
Well, ink is a bird's neck. I hasten... A neck, yes. I hasten to add that it's not a beautiful neck like Joanna's, you know, not that kind of bird's neck.
Yes,
but it is, in fact, the neck of a feathered bird. And if you moved in circles with ornithologists, obviously you would know this description because they always refer to feathered birds' necks, whether it be a thrush or a dove or anything like that. They always refer to it as an ink.
Splendid. So, it is a bird's neck. It's a nasty look, and it's great wads of seaweed. Frank.
What do you think? Hang on. Well, it mustn't be Paddy's. I mean, it might be, but it mustn't be. It shouldn't be. There's any justice in the world, which there isn't. Precious little of it. So we scrub Paddy. We're worried about the feathered birds, because all birds are feathered, aren't they?
Except when you eat them.
Ostriches aren't, are they, around their necks?
Ostriches
Aren't they bald?
Interesting discussion. However, Frank.
So, I choose the bird's neck.
The bird neck. That was Nanette Newman who said it.
It was a flash of inspiration.
Well, she'll have to tell us.
I'm sorry about
She's got
this,
it there somewhere.
Frank.
Bullseye! Don't worry that ink or inky... No, ink, she said, just ink, is a bird, a hairy bird. But, no, neck of a bird, I should say. Spitcher is the next one, and Russell, it's your go.
Are they ready? Because he's got his pins.
No, you just have to start talking and then you get their attention.
Right. For two of you will know what this is because it's an old word you use in the First World War. You have no idea what it's about. But it's a word which was used by English seamen as a boasting word when they had clobbered a U-boat. It's a nautical verb meaning to sink, to spatcher. There was an exchange, a celebrated exchange once in the war, in which somebody said, "By golly, sir, we've spitchered a U-boat." And the man said, "Good show, number one." And the man who said that was called Commander Hugo Frampton, DSO, wasn't he?
Yes. Next.
Have I finished?
Yeah, I think you have. You have. Joanna, you start.
Spitcher is a verb to do with trousers and also to do with boots. It's an old rural expression, and it means to spitcher means to cut your trousers off below the knee, and to spritcher means also to cut your boots off above the ankle. Though, of course, why anybody should indulge in such sartorial sabotage, the OED doesn't explain. And the OED is the Oxford English Dictionary.
It's a farm labourer with sexy shins.
And it was the first bit of Somersetshire of the series. Nice to register it. Frank, your turn.
Spitcher is a verb and a noun to do the same thing, and it's a word used in the jargon of entomologists.
What are they, Frank?
Entomologists, bug hunters, bug fanciers. And to spitcher a bug or butterfly or whatever, or larva, is to attach it to your cork display panel with a pin. To spitcher. And the pin
panel. You've got one.
He's never without it.
Patrick, I'm on. It's Frank's turn. If I may continue, and the pin which you spitch with is called a spitcher.
Good. It's to pin a butterfly, to cut off your boot or your trouser, should the fit be upon you, and it's to sink a submarine. Bryan.
Difficult. You know, one faces these three absolutely beautiful and bland people, all of whom are incapable, obviously, of telling lies, and one wonders whether...
Is he blonde or bland?
Bland. Wonders whether one should opt for cutting off one's trousers below the knee or one's boots below the ankle, or to spitcher a butterfly, did you say, or a bug?
Butterfly, bug, anything you care to collect?
What you will.
What you will.
I'm only going on kind of hunches, because there is an extraordinary word also from the First World War called scrimshanking, which is just as odd as spitcher.
We've had that.
Carving on ivories.
Yeah, absolutely, Frank, absolutely.
No, don't go near it.
No.
I don't know it.
Why did you talk to your wife about it?
Nanette's rather good at this game.
Yes, I do nothing but see Frank in my bookshop, and he always tells nothing but the truth when he buys books from me and pays his account, so I'm going to opt for Frank spitchering his bugs into his cork waistcoat or whatever it is.
Well, absolutely ice-cold logic for such a choice. Frank, true or bluff?
But it is a good bookshop.
No. Nothing of that sort. Who gave the true definition?
It is.
Low.
No.
It was.
Not again!
Yes.
You put me away from him.
And so it means to sink a submarine. By the way, it's a scrimshank doesn't mean what you said. It's scrimshaw that means that, just to prevent everyone writing in.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you are. Just occurred to me. Glamp is the next one, and it's Bryan Forbes' go.
Well, it's what I am at the moment after that last result. I mean, a glamp is a Worcestershire sulk. It's a word local to Worcestershire, which I don't come from, but for the state of being in a moody silence, or being antisocially glum or morose. I mean, mostly it's used in the expressions you'd say, you're in a glamp, or you're in the glamps. I mean, I hope that all of you are currently in a glamp if you think I'm bluffing at the present moment.
Yes. That's like a double negative, isn't it, really? Nanette, your go.
Well, glamp is a verb which actually means to grope. It's a rather nicer way of saying to grope. For instance, I'm married to a very short-sighted man, and if in the cinema he lost his glasses, I might say, oh, my goodness, now he's going to glamp for his glasses. Or if you were in a bath, you might say, now, you're going to glamp for the face cloth. Or perhaps more romantically, you might, in bed at night with your husband, say...
Steady, madam.
Perhaps my husband is going to glamp for me. It is another word, I think a rather nicer verb of saying to grope.
I'm short-sighted.
Yes. If it has to be said at all, I suppose it is. Patrick.
Well, what a joy it is, after all that, to come back to call my bluff with one of your favourite subjects, the diseases of sheep.
Hurrah!
Welcome home, lad.
Glamp, of course, is an infection of the sheep's mouth. And these idiots get it from eating polluted or stagnant moss. That's glamp forever.
Yes, it had to happen. It's a disease of sheep. It's to grope for something, and it is to be sulky in Worcestershire. Russell.
Bryan Forbes has had two words which both meant sulk, or inky was a sulk. Do an inky for me now, as I can tell. I mean, do a glamp for me.
Well, do a glamp.
What's a glamp?
Well, it's a sort of, you know...
Don't look at your paper. Do a glamp.
I'm doing a glamp. I was doing it then. I mean, I know it's a long time since I was an actor, but I am actually... I was trying to do a glamp. I was going to do one of, you know... Oh, well, one of those.
Right, well, I don't believe it. And also, Nanette, who is normally so fluent and so clear and so concise, was flanneling like hell when she got to this thing about, I'm going to get my husband to glamp for me in bed. I mean, it's ridiculous. You wouldn't need to help him. He would do it by radar or antennae or whatever that may be. Therefore, and the relief on Patrick's face when he got back to his foot and mouth disease.
Lovely to see you.
It was a joy to behold, and therefore I suspect that it's a sheep's mouth disease.
So you think that for once the sheep's disease is true? Now, let's see if it is. Patrick.
A faulty diagnosis.
Oh, no. No, that time it was just a trick, as it so often is. But who gave the true definition, I wonder?
Oh, Russell.
There you see.
I want you to believe me.
Well done, my darling. Great stuff. That's better.
No, to glamp means to grope for anything.
Yeah.
And there, 3-1, we have sambucade, but it'll be pronounced, I don't know, a million ways. Joanna.
A sambucade is a crisp fritter or pancake, which a country housewife might make. Its ingredients are sugar, white of egg and butter. But what gives it that special yum-yum flavour, it says here, is chopped up elderflowers. The flowers of, not old flowers, not any old flowers, just chopped up elder flowers.
In advanced years.
And so we come to Frank Muir.
Thank you. Sambucade in ancient warfare was a barrage of unguided missiles, all flaming. There were lumps of old tow and lumps of pitch and things, and they were hurled by catapult or whatever into the fleet or into the opposing ranks or over the castle wall.
Who's toe?
It's a sort of
T-O-W.
I can't understand a word. Just
it's the toe you set fire.
T-O-W.
oh, that's right.
Not you don't snatch it off, and you know. Russell Harty.
In question time at the House of Commons, you can hear a lot of Sambo cards bashing backwards and forwards because they're dishonest mental reservations frequently used by members of Parliament. And an historian by the name of Kettlewell, you will know him well, Kettlewell, wrote about this Samba carding that went back and forth like a ping-pong ball at question time. And he said most of the MPs did seem bent to take up such Samba card
That you went on.
as might ease them of all responsibility. Samba card.
Sambocard, right, or sambucade, pronounce it as you will, an incendiary missile, a kind of delicious pancake, and a sort of evasion, a way of evading. Nanette, your choice.
Well, I don't know that the fritter made with the elderflowers sounds terribly edible. Russell's thing with all the MPs, I don't know, that doesn't sound quite right to me. Frank, I'm gazing into your eyes, hoping that you will give me an honest look. I quite like the idea of toes and bits and pieces all being hurled over. It sounds so bizarre.
Brave feet.
I think... Can I have another go if I'm wrong, and I shall say that it's you, Frank?
It's you,
If not-
it's you. He said that it was an incendiary missile. True or bluff?
No, 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 no.
True one now. Here it comes.
Oh, it was.
It was indeed. It's an absolutely delicious pancake, and when she said it says here to cast doubt on the Oxford English Dictionary like that, I don't know.
Well, yum yum, you know.
Oh, yum yum.
Yum,
Yeah,
yum, that's
I
what I
see what you
said,
mean.
yum, yum.
Yes, or do I? 4-1. Crub we have next. Nanette.
Well, crub is a nearly extinct adverb, meaning unsuave, unaffable, rather nasty, something that's vaguely sort of unpleasant. I think a 17th century astrologer once said that if you were born under the sign of Capricorn, you shall be both crub and stubborn and have no skill or courtesy.
What about
Rather
that, then?
unpleasant.
Yes. Straight to the point. Patrick, his go.
Went quiet.
Didn't it?
Take the bottom of the Sea of Newfoundland. Newfoundland. It's covered with rocks, as you know. These fishing boats, if you throw an anchor into a load of rock, you're going to lose the anchor. And so what do these sagacious Northumberland, Newfoundland fishermen do? But they tie a piece of rope around a crub. Bung the rope over the side with the rock on it. You can nestle in between the rocks. And you can pull it up when you want to leave. Simple matter.
What is it?
So what was the crop?
It's an anchor
Sort of, yes.
made of rock.
Rock anchor.
Yes.
A rock anchor off Northumberland.
Have you got that? Not off Northumberland. Newfoundland, yeah. Where else? Bryan.
Well, a crub, or croob, as it was sometimes called, is that from which one hangs or suspends things from a pack horse. It's a kind of hook or peg, you know, which is firmly attached to a trip of canvas and thrown over the animal's back, whereupon you can hang your hat, an umbrella, your reputation, or if you are suicidally minded, you could hang yourself from it.
All right, so it's a hook on a horse, just like he said. It's to be rather evil-tempered, and it's a sort of anchor. You wrap a rope around a piece of rock. Joanna Lumley, choose.
I think this crub from the astronaut. No, astrologer.
She never said it.
He's a bit like crab, which is cancer, wouldn't he? I don't know. Crub. It sounds like cruddy. It sounds nearly there. Don't like it. We don't like it. We think the hook on the saddle from which you can commit suicide is also a bit neat. It sounds like a crub. Therefore, it isn't. Therefore, it's your Newfoundland rock.
That's what Patrick said, wasn't it? Patrick, is it true or bluff?
What a joy this can...
No, he made all that up. Who gave the true definition?
A coat hanger.
Who gave the truth?
You did.
It's a neat
It's that hook on the horse's saddle, and you can hang your necessaries from it. Hucklow is the next one. Frank, to define it.
I suppose, if I was to make this very brief, I'd say a 15th, 16th century tin waistcoat. It's worn by sort of serving men and bottlers, not by the aristocracy, and it was for show rather than for wear. It's a thin metal kind of thingy.
Metal.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hence
okay.
tin waistcoat.
Russell.
A Huckler was an apprentice navvy, a very young lad who, the sort of young men who built high railroads in the West Pennines in the 1880s and 1890s, and they were kids and they got paid less than ordinary navvies, and they had all the dirty work to do, and they were the bottom of the picking order.
Picking order. Picking order.
I don't know why you're sneering, Frank.
How'd you got it out?
Frank,
Thank God.
I was going to say.
Thank God you appreciate it.
I think it's very good, Russell.
Yeah, who comes next? Right, yes, Joanna. See what you can do.
While James I was persecuting Puritans, there was a stately dance going on at the palace, and the dance was the Huckler. I can't really show you the steps of the Huckler here. No, I can't. No, I won't be persuaded.
You and Frank do it.
But it's not unlike another dance which I think Patrick might know. Palace dance of the same time, which is called the Tom Bedlow. And the steps are quite like it, the Huckler's steps. James I.
James I, even earlier.
He was so small he had to be carried downstairs at that time, hadn't you, Patrick? Shame on you, Joanna. It's an apprentice navvy, it seems. It's a tin waistcoat, and it's a stately Jacobean dance. Patrick.
I believe all this picking absolute drivel. I mean, if you've got to go to those lengths to say that the picking list, that's really scrapping around, isn't it?
Picking what?
No,
Picking order.
I'm working it.
Is that joke?
Picking order. A dance that's like a dance. It's when you said rather dyingly, it's a kind of thin thing. I think you were trying to throw me off the scent, and it's fairly apart to me from here because it's that.
You're choosing what Frank said. He said
Yes,
it was a
that
tin
thin
waistcoat.
metal
True or
tin
bluff?
thing.
If we hurry, who knows? We may get another word. No. Whatever he was doing, Patrick, he succeeded. Anyway, who gave the true definition as quick as you like?
It was me.
It was Joanna. Stately dance. Not so stately now, you'll have to move rather swiftly. Croquet is the next one, Patrick.
It's rather complicated. It's a part of inside of a huge clock. Little Y-shaped thing like that. And the shaft of the rod goes into it. And as the pendulum
I think we ought
backwards
to
and
hurry.
forwards, this moves the escapement of the clock mechanism.
Well, that's it. Bryan,
Well, as
swiftly as you can.
Yes, well, as they probably guessed, a croquet is the name given by Aberdonians to the wading bird more commonly known as the oyster catcher.
That'll do us. That'll do us.
Oh,
Nanette.
no.
No, we haven't the time, I fear. Nanette.
It was a word that was in vogue 300 years ago, and it meant to be perverse or contrary or against something.
Right. Sort of wayward.
Yes.
Part of a clock, I think he was doing. Sort of part of a clock. And an oyster catcher. Frank.
I don't know. It's a quick.
Oyster catcher.
Oh, who said that? That was Bryan. True or bluff?
Curse you, croquets!
So, no doubt whatever about it, as we come to the end and score standing at 6-2, Frank Muir has won. And I dare say that'll put a sharp edge on Patrick and co for the next round, but I think a round of applause for them. Next time we shall have some more walking wounded from the Oxford English Dictionary. Until then, goodbye from Russell Harty.
Bye.
Bryan Forbes. Joanna Lumley. Nanette Newman. Frank Muir. Patrick Campbell. And goodbye. Hello again. This is Call My Bluff, featuring the old three-bob note, Patrick Campbell.
Last week, the opening game of this series, it turned out to be a disaster for us, to my amazement. But I have now brought back the same reliable team as before. They're married, fairly happily. Nanette Newman. And the bearded terror, Bryan Forbes.
And the redskin who speaks with forked tongue, Frank Muir.
I'm not married to either of my team. 50% regrets. Back comes very gorgeous and a very successful Joanna Lumley. And back comes quite so gorgeous but equally successful Russell Harty.
Ring the bell, and as ever, we get a word that's a very long and good word. Birkendoors, I think it said. Anyway, Patrick and his team are going to define Birkendoors 3 different ways. 2 of the definitions are false ones. 1 is true, and that's what Frank's going to pick out, or try to. So what about it, Patrick?
Your average regulation Birkendoorsy is a Hindustani doorman. If you're blundering around a city like perhaps Jabalpur, with your pith helmet turned back to front looking for pleasure, you want to keep an eye out for this lad, because if you want to gate crash past him, you're in for it, because he not only wears this great uniform, but he also carries a sword and a shield. That's what he does. A Hindustani doorman.
OK, well, now Bryan Forbes tells us the thing.
Well, a Birkendoors is an Armenian bishop's cloak. It's a very voluminous garment which, if you'll pardon the expression, covers a multitude of sins which the bishop wears when he's handing out blessings and so forth, or like me, just praying for a good notice. And that's what it is. It's an Armenian bishop's overcloak.
Got to have an Armenian bishop, got to have one. Every series. Nanette.
Well, I'm afraid this is nothing really to get very excited about. It is quite simply a nettle which is found in North America. It's the non-stinging variety.
Metal or nettle?
Oh, a nettle.
Right.
And I suppose the only claim to fame, really, or the only useful purpose it has, really, is that it hangs in clumps in North America, in windows or in doorways, and it helps to keep away flies or blue bottles or anything like that. Not really very thrilling.
Never mind.
Oh, no.
Never mind.
Never mind,
It's something.
Yes, nice, tight-packed definition, that. It's a nettle, it's a Hindu doorman, and it's an Armenian bishop's cloak. Frank.
Hmm? Well, we're... I don't understand Paddy's bit all about the Hindustani with a curved sword taking the pith helmet. Recalcitrant visitors into nightclubs.
Not listening.
No. Birkendoors can't be a Hindustani.
It's a club you belong to.
Out! Armenian bishop's overcoat seemed to be a little bit of desperation creeping in there, Bryan, do you think, with a little bit? Yes, I think so. I reckon it's the nettle.
Well, if you're choosing that...
I like Nanette. I think she's prettiest.
Yes, indeed. But is she telling fibs, or is it the true... Ah, you see? Yeah, she looks nice, but they're devious as any of the rest of them. So who gave the true definition? Let's see.
Oh, of course. Everyone knew.
All that stuff you said about the pith helmet turned back. You look very good in one. Not backwards, but sideways.
On the loose in Jabalpur, as you wear.
Yes. Yeah, you got them off the scent there, all right. Yeah, anyway, it is a Hindu doorman. Now we have Snike and Frank.
I don't think Hindus have doors. Oh, never mind. Snake. Very, very, very useful little word, snake. keep it handy by you. If ever you want to describe 12 hawks. Because not 13, useless, or 11. But if you want to say 12 hawks, a snake of hawks, you say.
File that away carefully. Russell.
When you are printing, you take in one hand the block in an old-fashioned sense before you put it onto the paper, and with your left hand, and with your right hand you put an inky pad over it, and you snike the print, and you get very dirty, very mucky hands, and then you do that with it onto the paper. And if you don't do that, if you don't snike first, you don't get anything on your paper. So it's a sort of inky, blotty, snikey thing.
Yeah. Right.
It's not funny either.
No. Dreadfully informative, though. Joanna.
It may cause a lifting of the eyebrows for you to hear that only a snake can snike. Snike is a verb with the meaning of a snake to crawl. And in the Cockney dialect, because you wanted a dialect, didn't you, Bob?
Yes.
Oh, over
in the
and over
Cockney
and over
dialect,
again.
this could cause for some sort of, misunderstandings, because you could hear somebody saying, "Here, take a butcher's at this. There's a snike sniking."
She's got it.
Well, you know.
Well, you know, that kind of thing, roughly.
I think
Michael Caine is alive and singing.
No, I think that's what I call a plucky try. Anyway, it's to ink type. It's a dozen hawks, collective noun for same, and it's to crawl, as Joanna said. I mean, of snakes to crawl. Patrick.
It couldn't possibly be a crawling snake.
It wouldn't be Stony Dawn.
But all this inky block work of yours, Russell, it seemed to be that you'd be there forever with the block in one hand and the ink in the other, and the paper underneath it. But trying to do what with these three ingredients to print something?
Of course it's trying to print something. I mean, what else would you be doing?
You never know. Why should 12 hawks be called a snake?
Got to be called something.
They are, though.
Are you picking it, are you?
Yep.
Now, that was the collective noun for a dozen hawks. Frank, give us it. Give us it. Let's have a look.
Looking a little bit too happy, I'm afraid.
Where did he get that one from? I don't know. Who gave the true definition?
It may cause a lifting of your eyebrows.
It's a plot. It's a
Snike is a verb describing what snakes do when they go from one place to the other. 1-1. And we have this word, harmole. Bryan.
Well, actually, it's the harmole, which was a title once given in Truro, Cornwall, to the official who used to accompany the High Sheriff. And he was supplied, free of charge, with, quote, a large staff with a brazen head. And he was also paid quite well on a sort of early BBC scale of, well, let me quote, in 1552, pre-BBC Two, he was paid 23 and sixpence for his pains. The Harmole, an official of the Sheriff of Truro in Cornwall.
Good enough, anyway. Nanette.
Well, to discover the meaning of this word, you first have to remove the H at the beginning and move it 3 paces along.
Oh, I can't.
Thus, magically, the word armhole appears. And this is really just an antique version of the same word, a sort of aperture in a coat through which an arm is thrust. You could either say you're thrusting your arm into an armhole or a harmhole.
If that's true, I'm going to retire from this programme. Really, it's all got too much.
Now, Patrick.
The armole. The Spanish word, of course. A man called Armale made a gun, a long rifle. Mexican War against the States, 1820 onwards. It was a lovely tube. It's huge, long barrels, you see, but it took you a couple of days to prime it. So after you'd pulled the chain on it, and possibly missed, it was another 2 days to reload it again. Not a very popular weapon, but much used in Mexican War, 1820 against you.
Mexican, did you say?
Good old 1820, that's what I say. So, armhole, it means armhole, or musket, not a very good one, and a sheriff's assistant in Truro, Russell Harty.
Yeah.
Well,
Feel it. This eager look of incompetence.
Bryan Forbes said that a harmo was, in some part, something to do with a man who carried a large staff with the brazen head.
Yes.
Which sounds a bit like a description of the civil service. And I don't really believe that, because it's too far southwest and we're constantly dwelling in Cornwall or the Celtic fringe, and I don't like it. Nanette is a rather too... Thank God it was an M and not an S, as well as we're moving things along. I think, therefore, I incline to this big Bertha, which is lurking on your desk, which is a long primable gun. I would go.
That's what Patrick said. He said it was something they used, but it wasn't very good.
He did say
Took you about a day to prime. True or bluff? Let's find out, because find out we must what harmo really means.
Yes, I know.
There we are.
Yes.
Don't you believe it?
Lovely work, madame. That's better. It's just the way now do them.
Well, I don't know.
Promises, Frank. You never stick to it.
Well, the awful thing is Joanna chose it, and I very cleverly overrode her.
It's most unlikely that harmo should mean armhole, but yet it does, isn't it? Put your harm in the hole. Unbelievable, but there you are. It's true. And now we have score standing at 2-1. Goofer, I suppose you say. Russell Harty.
In the Sankara religion, which is an offshoot of a kind of Hindustani religion, there were three dominant passions or beliefs. They were goodness, darkness, and passion. Goodness, as it would be the world of flesh and the devil, Patrick Campbell would be goodness, passion would be Nanette Forbes, and darkness would be Bryan Forbes. Ooh. Throughout your life, you were dominated at one time or another by one of these three passions. Whichever was the dominant passion was the goofer at that moment of your life.
Nonsense.
His mouth was opening as I said it.
Well, I thought you were goofing off.
So then, Joanna, what do you tell us?
In a Zulu combo, the lead instrument is called a goofer, and it is a calabash, which is a sort of thing, with a single string stretched across it. But it is not an instrument that Mr. Yehudi Menuhin would care much to play, because even a master at this instrument can only produce one note, probably ong. I mean, it's only one note. That's all you can get out of it.
Boing. Kind of fairly short festival, isn't it?
Yes. And that's the lead instrument.
Going to lack for an audience, but there. Harp another note, Frank.
You could stretch a lead across it if it's the lead instrument. Goofer. Goofer is a small boat in which one can row up and down the Euphrates, which is a river in what was Mesopotamia. It has neither stem nor stern. In fact, it's made of plaited straw and is circular, which makes it frightfully difficult to tell where you've been. And in fact, to get anywhere...
Oh, I see, yes. Well, it's a Zulu musical instrument. It's a little tiny boat with neither stem nor stern, and it's a philosophical conceit. Bryan.
Some gut work.
Yes. I think this unlikely casting of Russell Harty as an Eastern mystic trying to propagate Nanette Newman as the goddess of passion doesn't strike me as...
It's only from what...
Well, I mean, I agree with that. I don't like Russell saying it, that's all. A goofer, a one-legged instrument. I said that.
More or less.
Yes, more or less, deliberately. And then Frank, heavily up the Euphrates, as they say. Not up the Khyber for once. Thank you. I'm going to plumb for dear old Frank, paddling his way against the stream.
Now, Frank did indeed say that it was a boat with neither stem nor sail. Was it true, my dear chap? It's all he said about that little boat, and a good deal more, I don't doubt. It's 3-1 now, and we have this word, dandywink, and it's Nanette Newman's turn to define it.
Well, a dandywink is a form of aperture in agricultural terms. It's something that probably wouldn't have been needed very much during this long, hot summer. But it is an upright stook of corn where they make a hole in one side, on the side of the prevailing wind. And when we've had a very bad summer, this hole is made so that the rain-sodden corn has at least a chance of drying out.
Yes.
It's always made in the side of a thing of
Kind
corn.
old farmers.
Yes.
Thoughtful.
Let's hear what Patrick has to tell us now.
If you're any kind of amateur yachtsman...
I'm not.
No, wait. A dandywink is concerned with nautical matters. Say now you have a thing in the sea, in a small boat, in a dinghy. It might be a kind of crate of booze, or a fat old woman, or even two sailors with broken legs. If you want to get all this impedimenta aboard your yachty, shackle up your dandywink. Turn the handle, and then it all comes aboard lovely.
Does it?
OK, well, no, I don't see why Bryan Forbes shouldn't have a go.
Well, a dandywink is a rather showy little shrub that New Zealand Percy throwers tend to cultivate. It's an antipodean variety of phlox. You know what phlox are? You know, shepherds watch them. Which it's a flower vaguely resembling a sort of human eye, across which, when every puff of wind, the petals appear to give a kind of, well, you know, the semblance of a wink. That's why it's called a dandywink.
How sweet.
Yes, so it's the right sort of hole in a stook of corn so that the wind can dry it out. It's kind of a lift for hoisting things aboard a ship, and it's a shrub. Joanna.
Do it.
Yes, I'll do it. It's not the gap in the stook. Stooks are made in such a way that they have gaps in them. They don't have to have holes made in the gaps.
Yeah.
God,
wrong.
Oh, it's ice cold.
Flowers winking. You're trying to get us on this hollyhock dandywink. No, it is Patrick's. It is Patrick's winch for old ladies with broken
That's what
legs.
he said. He said, well, that's right. He said it was something for,
It's you.
hoisting things aboard.
Show us, Patrick.
Patrick, extraordinary.
Something for hoisting stuff, onto a ship. So we have a 3-2 now. Credemnon is the next word, and Joanna, your turn.
A credemnon was a Greek fire basket set atop a pole, the pole was then wedged in amongst the rocks, and it burnt at night time, and it was a navigational aid to mariners. And in fact, it was the dousing, the putting out of the credemnons at Charon in 405 BC that caused the shipwreck of the Spartan fleet.
Neat as you please, all
You've
ramped
got the
up,
part.
posted there. Frank Muir.
Credemnon was the... I don't know what I've put here. It was the sacred creed of the Shannamites. And the Shannamites, I have no need to remind you, were one of the lost tribes of Israel who were lost and then they got found again. And this creed is recited, and it's enormously long, contains 800 separate sentences, so the reciter has got to... I can start. And the reciter has got to have a tremendous amount of guts and tenacity and spittle, otherwise your mouth goes dry. You can't recite more than about 500 verses without your mouth going dry. I better shut up.
Yes. Next, please.
Thank you, Patrick. Russell?
The impatient Mr. If you were a fashionable Greek lady, Nanette, in the Grecian times, you would wear a credemnon, which was a very, very long, wispy, specially made veil. Ritualistically, you would wind it around your head 3 times, and then 3 times around whichever part of your torso you could reach with what bit was left over from 3 times around your head.
Yes, fair enough. Sort of a very voluminous veil. The creed of the Shunammite, I think it was, and a warning to mariners. Nanette.
Oh, well, I'm so frightened not to think that it's Joanna, because I'm sure that it almost has to be. Her sounds so logical, and I don't think somehow Frank's 800 verses of.
Forget it, dear. Take my advice.
Russell. Well, all that winding round of the veils and things, I don't know. It's sort of... I adore Russell so much. I have to think, Russell, that I hope that it's you.
So do I.
That was more of a plea than a choice.
That girl at the end of Streetcar Named Desire said, never throw yourself upon the kindness of strangers. Right?
Let's see whether it's true or bluff.
They're all mixed up there, too.
No, they're not mixed up. I know exactly where I am.
Honest version.
Nearly.
This is rather smiling time.
Greek veil, just like he said. Oh, I'm sorry to ring twice. I only want another one word. There we have giz, jizz, I know. Patrick Campbell, what does he say?
Gin fizz.
It's called giz. It's a pigeon fancier's name for an ailment that affects his fancies. It's not sheep disease, but far worse, because it's called in pigeons. It's called crop rust or jizz. These poor birds blundering around with crop rust. They can hardly breathe. And consequently, not being filled with air, they can't even take off the ground. They sit there with crop rust or jizz, day after day, until death supervenes.
Dreadful news. We'll have Bryan Forbes now.
Well, a giz is Scottish vernacular for a wig, a particular sort of cheap, rather worsted wig as might be worn by an indigenous grocer. And I don't suppose those of you who've been on the programme before will be too surprised to know that I have a totally incomprehensible quote from Robbie Burns.
Oh, great.
And so, with apologies to the Celtic football team, I will read, because I cannot not read it. We reek it duds and rest it giz. You did present, yes, smarty fizz.
Well put.
Leaves very little more to say, does it? But I think I'll ask Nanette to tell us something.
Well, a giz is the very stuff that nightmares are made of. It's an apparition that appears before you when you're asleep, in your imagination. And it is something quite horrific that presses down upon you and suffocates you. It's one of those terrifying dreams where you fight to wake up. And I have to admit that there has been a general consensus of opinion that this apparition is usually, this giz, is usually in female form.
Right, well, we've got the statutory pigeon disease. We've got a monster out of a nightmare, and along with a quote from Robbie Burns, and of course no game's complete without that, a wig. Frank, you choose.
We are pusillanimous, and unanimous. Scottish grocer's wig we put out to hand, and if anyone was easy to fake, it's the poet Burns.
I didn't.
Mach the nu, the mich, the tea, we I the... No, forget that. Female apparition is interesting, nice thought, but I think one would have come across the word, wouldn't one? In one's,
I'm getting a bad thought about that. Go on.
I cannot think that Paddy would make up that most harrowing story of that pigeon with crop failure, failing to get up off the ground, running towards the fence and then not being able to make it. It must be you, Paddy.
A very subtle performance, Patrick. There, true or bluff, my lad?
You're a fool, aren't you?
No, once again, it wasn't a disease of pigeons, nor yet of sheep. Anyway, who gave the true definition? Must have it. Got it there. I don't know whether the Burns was, authentic, but anyway...
Adequate.
Probably, yeah, adequate, yes. But anyway, giz does mean wig. Now, 5-2, we've got fairly comfortable, swift time to get this one in. Pandan. Frank, your turn.
Well, a pandam is a welcoming poet, usually of 5 lines, which Tamil recites in Malaysia to his guest. He recites this little thingy, and the pandan, and only the first, third, and fifth lines have to rhyme. And this little tiny, rather elegant, sweet verse form was made much use of by the poet Austin Dobson.
Right. Let us speed gently on. Russell.
It's a small, beautifully made, tastefully and richly decorated beetle nut juice box. Beetle nut, N-U-T, nut box. You know, if you lived in eastern parts, you offered your beetle nut juice to a gentleman, if you should be sitting next to one, or a lady even. As gentlemen in old England offered each other snuff boxes, it's a rich, tastefully decorated beetle nut juice box. Nut juice box.
Joanna, very quickly, if you will.
It used to be called Pandano, is now called Pandan. It's short crust pastry. Wish I hadn't said it. With marzipan and nutmeg, all making it rich, and you put strips of it on Lady Sunderland's pudding, little crisscross strips of it.
It's pastry, you say. It's pastry. It's a beetle nut juice box, and it's a nice little welcoming poem. Patrick.
One quick guess, is it?
Well, quickish. Yes.
They're always running up pastry and cakes and thistle soup and dribble like that. Whatever your... No,
Choose one.
this is the foul work of Austin Dobson.
Frank, you said it, all that stuff about the welcoming poem. Will you tell us now, true or bluff?
It's a bluff, isn't it?
And the true one, as quick as you like. And there it is. It is a box containing beetle nut juice, and you offer it around and enjoy it and so forth. So then it's perfectly clear that the winners this time, at the score standing at 5-3, are or is Patrick Campbell. And I suppose a round of applause for the other fellows too. And lady, I should say. So we shall have some more words rehabilitated from the OED for about half an hour or so next week. Until then, goodbye from Bryan Forbes, Russell Harty, Nanette Newman, Joanna Lumley, Patrick Campbell.
Good night.
Frank Muir.
Good night.
And goodbye. Hello, good evening. This is Call My Bluff, featuring the inventor of the gold brick, Frank Muir.
My first guest is an actress who's been delighting us enormously in The Good Life, also in a smashing commercial, and also in what is known as London's West End. It's Penny Keith. And the gentleman on my left is literary editor of Punch. He's also 25% of a group who've got an LP out, and they're called Instant Sunshine, which I think is the perfect nickname for Miles Kington.
And dealing off the bottom of the pack as usual, Patrick Campbell.
Good evening. My first guest was miles away from getting born when I first knew her father in Dublin, about 40 years ago. But fortunately, this oversight was repaired just in time to bring her here tonight. Lovely Sinead Cusack. And the other performer, my assistant, got bound into the public eye by playing the rather difficult part of an impotent poet in Upstairs and Downstairs. But he's been bounding around as a much more potent actor ever since Ian Ogilvy.
Going to be difficult to improve on that. Anyway, we'll have to try by ringing the bell, getting a word, mondongo. Jolly good word, I think. And you may recall what happens is that Frank and his team are going to define mondongo 3 different ways. 2 of the definitions are bogus, 1's true, and that's the one that Patrick and co are going to try and find. So what about this word, Frank?
Well, it's so obvious for a beginning word, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, everyone knows this, don't they? Mondongo. Mm-hmm. It's a Venezuelan national dish. Surely you know that. Tripe soup. Yes, it's tripe soup. It's quite easy to make, actually. You get a local animal, mountain goat, mountain sheep, llama, and you simmer it over a lowish fire, and at the right moment, it's... you get the giblets and the entrails out. They like it. Venezuelan giblet soup, you'd say, really, or tripe soup.
Tripe soup sounds like another name for Call My Bluff, but tripe soup, I don't know. Miles, your go.
Well, if mondongo was still made today, we'd probably be able to show you some on the programme, because it would no doubt be round Frank Muir's neck, because it's in a bow tie, because it's a rather attractive sort of densely woven twilled cotton, which was made once upon a time in the Algarve district of Portugal. And we would never have heard of it, except that it was imported into this country, and it was made into fancy waistcoats with which gentlemen covered their manly chests, and small mats with which ladies covered their dressing tables.
All right, so and now it's Penelope Keith, your go.
Yes, well, a mondongo is a person who is half Spanish and half Cuban, especially one who has a Spanish father and a Cuban mother. Now, surprisingly enough, General Zayas, who led the Cuban army against Spain in the 1840s, was himself a mondongo.
So, that's what it means. They say it's a Spanish-Cuban, tripe soup, Portuguese cotton, kind of cotton from Portugal. Patrick?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Just a minute. We just blaze away. No. Well, now, let us see what we've got. Tripe, as you well know, is not giblets. Either you're making a tripe out of the stomachs of sheep, or you're pulling the giblets out of the sheep to boil them. Dismissed. Sorry. Some other time. Not yet.
I'll be sorry.
Portuguese cotton. Oh, it's half Spanish. There's no such thing as a half Spanish. I believe it's Portuguese cotton.
Portuguese cotton, that was.
But it's not, is it?
Miles Kington, tell us true or bluff.
No, it's not.
No. Well, I wonder now who gave the true definition. It's always the oddest, isn't it?
Oh, not. Oh.
Yep, Mondongo is tripe soup. I still think it's a very good name for a panel game. Perhaps someone will invent it sooner or later. Mitchell is the next one. Patrick, your go.
And Mitchell is a rare, very particularly unique, really, not very particularly, but unique stone that comes from Purbeck, of course, Dorset, and use it for paving your patio. But the difficulty with Purbeck, I mean, not with Purbeck, but with Mitchell's, is they got to be exactly 24 inches by 15. Otherwise, well, it's not a Mitchell.
What is it?
Yeah.
Paving stone.
Paving stone has to be the right shape, it seems. Ian Ogilvy.
Mitchell. It's Cockney rhyming slang for knuckle. So you give them a Mitchell. Or plural, give them Mitchells. And it derives from a name of a large East End warehouseman firm called Mitchell and Buckle. Knuckle. Mitchell and Buckle. Knuckle. Mitchell, give him a Mitchell.
Yes. I've heard more extravagant things on this programme. Yep. Sinead, your turn.
Well, a Mitchell is a domestic hand churn for making very small quantities of butter, very little butter. And it usually takes the form of a very small miniature barrel, which is moved backwards and forwards very laboriously by a lever, which moves through approximately 60 degrees. And that's what a Mitchell is.
Right, so it's a kind of a paving stone of a certain shape from Purbeck. It's rhyming slang for knuckle, and it's a butter churn. Frank.
Back to the old roulette. Well, it cannot be, it's a well-known fact that a paving stone in Purbeck is called a Purbeck paving stone. This is known throughout the Western Hemisphere. A bit worried about I'm worried about all three. Mitchell would be spelt with an L, wouldn't it, if it was rhyming slang? If it was a name, Mitchell and Knuckle, Buckle. But the hand churn, I don't understand hand churns at all, and so I'm going for the rhyming slang.
Ah, the knuckle that he spoke of. Yes, that was Ian Ogilvy. Was it true, or was it just a tease? Nothing. No, wasn't that. Now we'll find out who gave the true definition. I'm sure we shall.
Some people don't know anything about Purbeck stone.
So much for roulette. Mitchell does mean, paving stone from Purbeck. Now we have knitter, and I think it's Miles Kington to have a turn.
Well, a knitter is a kind of bee. Now, most bees fly around gathering pollen for honey, but nits don't. They prefer to deposit nits on horses. That's why they're called knitters. And these nits, so deposited on horses, irritate the horse extremely, but cause no irritation at all to the knitter. If they did, of course, they wouldn't do it. It's very sensible.
Yes. So, Penelope, your go.
Well, a knitter is old barrack room slang for the brass guard that a soldier used to use to put round his brass buttons on his uniform when he was brassoing them, so the brasso wouldn't get onto the khaki uniform. It's just an oblong with a slot in the middle, and you could slot the buttons in and just polish away and get lovely bright buttons, but no brasso on your uniform. A knitter.
Yep. Frank.
Knitter is it's a trifle, a triviality, but one which is irksome. No, I don't like them very much. It's Tobias Smollett. You remember, traduced by malice, as he said, fled to the continent. And in his book, A Journey Through France and Italy, he said, as I recall, a curse upon those who, with their follies and their knitter, do beset and pester me. And to beset and pester me. For the third time. And pester me.
Oh, Preston.
Oh, yes.
Just a moment. Little note.
He was a Scottish gentleman. I didn't say that.
Good stuff, good stuff. Right, so it's a brass that you stick behind buttons before you polish them. It's a trifle, a thing of naught, and it's a nasty sort of insect depositing nits on horses, I think. Ian and Ogilvy, your turn to choose.
I don't think it's a bee that puts nits on horses, somehow. I mean, yes, I just don't think it's that. I don't know why. Frank's irksome triviality and a quotation. I'm not sure I like quotations. It smacks of trying to pull us one way or another. I think it's Penelope's button guard. I do.
That's what she said. You slid them. There is such a thing. I know that for certain. Whether it's called this, I don't know. Penelope, true or bluff? Ah, no. So, which of the other ones was it? The thing of naught, or was it the the bee that deposited the nits? Yes. It's the bee of which Miles Kington spoke. We'll have another word, and that word is gamming, and the score standing at 2-1. Ian Ogilvy to define it.
Gamming. It's all about whaling. Now, the life of a whaler is a very lonely one. He spends his whole time on a ship in the middle of the Arctic, and he never gets any get-togethers, but he does occasionally when he goes in for a gamming. A gamming is when all the whaling captains and crews have a get-together in mid-ocean for the sole and express purpose of social intercourse.
In a gamming hell.
Very good. I like it.
Promising young lad there, yes.
They've all got one
Chip
leg.
off the old block, yes.
Wooden leg.
Must be very chilly, but there. Sinead, your go.
Well, a gamming is an absolute must if you live in a house surrounded by quicksand or bog. You must have a gamming. In fact, you must have two gammings, because a gamming is a flat board shaped a bit like a snowshoe with straps attached to be fitted onto the foot so that the wearer can glide over the quicksand or bog, as the case may be. That's a gamming.
All right, now it's Patrick's turn to go.
You can remain fairly cool about gamming, or gammy as it's really known, because it's only granulated pig iron, a fairly tedious lump of stuff. Take a lump of pig iron, all surrounded by gravel, or every kind of detritus, and they batter and beat it with a sieve it. It comes a hard grey grit comes out the other end, which is used for polishing machinery, that kind of thing. But that gets rather exciting, because when the hopper comes down and picks up this grey grit...
The one-legged whaler.
When the hopper comes down and picks up the grit, it puts it into a gammy bag. That's the exciting bit about
So you say, then, that it's a big flat board for walking over quicksand or bog, it's a party for whalers in the middle of the ocean, and it's granulated pig iron, a thrill a minute. Miles?
I wasn't listening terribly careful to Sinead. I got the impression of a sort of moving house, great duckboard. No, but you put...
Oh, no, it's like a snowshoe.
The duckboard worn on the foot.
On the foot?
I see,
oh,
yes.
Certainly.
Duckboard on the foot, yes, thank you.
You may stand down.
Granulated pig iron. I like the Whalers' Party.
The Whalers' Party, yes. Now, that was Ian Ogilvy who said that. Was it true or...
And I'm going for it, too.
Ah, I assumed you would. Ah, it's a full It's certainly absolutely right that gamming is this curious get-together in the middle of the Arctic for sailors. 3-1, we've got a word called Simpson, and it's Penelope's go.
Well, Simpson in the Victorian era was jocular slang for a person, especially a child, who was always whimpering and complaining. And in fact, Captain Marriott wrote in one of his short stories for children, he actually wrote, "Go indoors and dry yourself," said Aunt May, "and stop standing whimpering like a nasty little Simpson." Simpson, whimpering child.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Frank, your go.
Simpson is a verb. I Simpson. Thou Simpsonist. He, she, Simpsons. They, Simpson. We, Simpson. Past tense. It means to adulterate milk with water, and it's the novelist Tobias Smollett. Back is in a novel called Humphrey Clinker, wrote about adulterated food in London, and apparently. Not only do they have water, but they used to crack snails and drop those in and shake it up, and it frothed the milk and made it look fresh. This is late. Bear with me. This is late. The bell will go in a moment, and you can have break. The late 18th century, that was. By the 1960s, a milkman called Simpson was arrested for doing this, and to this day, to Simpson, I Simpson, thou Simpson, means to add water to milk, to adulterate it.
Even if that's right, we couldn't bear even mention it ever again.
Well, now, I'm sure it's long overdue for Miles Kington to have a word.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt the Wreath lectures, but I would like to get a word in. Simpson, in fact, was an old word used about 100 years ago in America, one of the many words at the time, for a sort of magic lantern. And it was named after the man who invented it, was called Finlay. Simpson. It was not usually used by itself, but in conjunction with another word, like Simpson Show. That was a magic lantern show. You'd say, let's go round to the Reichenbachers and see their Simpson Show, or hear like some super slides of their vacation.
Yeah.
They did. They don't any longer.
No. Someone came along, put a bag over their heads, I suppose, when they stopped. So it's to water milk. It's a magic lantern, and it's a snivelling child. Sinead, your turn.
Well, it's very difficult. I think Frank's definition of the adulterating the milk, I'm beginning to lose faith in Tobias and his anecdotes, so I think I'll give that one a miss. Now, Miles's American word for a magic lantern. I don't think a Simpson has a magic feel to it.
Well, that's why it became extinct, of course.
Yes, that would explain it. No, but I don't think I'll go for that one. No, I think I'll plump for Penny's snivelling child.
That's an absolute treat, because it's the first plump of this new series, and I'm just personally very well pleased. She plumped for you, Penelope. You said it was that. Not a snivelling child. We'll learn the true one now.
Well, Tobias Smollett also...
It's the act of watering milk is to Simpson. 4-1, I say. Fidge is our next word, and it's Sinead Cusack to tell us.
Well, fidge, as must surely be clear to one and all, is a verb describing the action of somebody who's very fidgety. Somebody who twitches or shrugs or scratches or otherwise shows signs of St. Vitus dance, really. And it can also be used as a noun. You could say that somebody who is very fidgety, a bit like me, would be described as being in a fidge. And that's what the word fidge means.
On a fridge?
Right.
No, fidge.
Patrick,
it's a verb, of course. It's to fidge. It's done by shepherds.
I fidge, thou fidge.
It's done by shepherds that approach sheep with enormous shears for the purpose of cutting the wool off from underneath the sheep's tail and all around it. This is not wholly unconnected with the multiplication of the flock. If you want any more of that, I'll see you in the dressing room after.
So that, and Ian Ogilvy tells us.
Well, I'm getting away from Smollett now because I'm going to quote from Mallory's Arthur. Sir Hector in Fidge cast his spear, and drawing sword smote his enemy a great buffet. Now, a fidge is a rest or a support for a spear or a lance as carried by a mounted man-at-arms. It's a kind of little leather stirrup attached to the saddle, and he'd carry his lance or his spear like that. That's what a fidge is.
Right, so they say that it's one who fidgets. It's a support for a spear or lance, and it's shaving a sheep's tail. Penelope, choose.
Well, I haven't carried many spears recently, but I don't think I'd use my fidge for carrying a spear. Seeing Patrick in the dressing room after is a lovely thought, but I don't think one would fidge a sheep. No, I think it's a fidgety, twitchety. I think it's Sinead's fidge.
Yes, Sinead Cusack said that. Was she telling the truth? Was it a bluff?
Yes.
Yeah. A fidge, what else could it be? Well, it could have been all the other things as well, but it wasn't. It was one who fidgets. Scribbit is the next one. Frank.
Ah, yes. A scribbit, terribly handy if you've got an old wooden bucket and the string has broken, or in fact you've got a modern metal bucket. It's a piece of wood that you put through the ears of the bucket if it lacks a handle or if it contains something very heavy, and lift it up by. It's a good idea. Sort of wooden rod, you know. Scribbit.
Yes, well, now, what can Miles Kington do for us? Tell us something.
Well, the last time you looked at the bottom of a greyhound's foot, you probably noticed that the pad underneath is very soft, and that's known as a scribbit. Now, these days, greyhounds are used mostly for the purpose of chasing a bionic hare around the White City. But in the old days, when it was a hunting animal, the scribbit was much more at danger from scratching by stones and thorns, and they actually used to put little elegant leather booties on the greyhound scribbit when it went out. The scribbit has now gone out as well, and actually, it'd be a good idea to bring them back, because then you could put the maker's name on and flash in the TV camera. Scribbit.
Right. Penelope Keith.
Well, a scribbit, it no doubt derives from the word to scribe or inscribe, is in fact a piece of charcoal that an artist uses to draw with, make their mark with. And it's a not very well-known fact outside artistic circles that the best scribbits are actually made from a very slowly burnt piece of willow. Once you burn it right down, this makes the most wonderful scribbit for drawing with.
Right, so it's a fairly temporary bucket handle. It's a stick of charcoal you draw with, and it's the underside of a greyhound's foot. Yeah. Patrick.
I don't know my own name by this time.
George.
That's me, yes. A little booties for greyhounds.
No, that's...
Leave
A wooden rod. If you've got a wooden rod shoved through the ears of bucket, if the bucket has ears, that will be the day. An eared bucket. I don't. It's kind of charcoal artists use.
Ah, well, that was Penelope. She said that, wasn't it? That it was something you drew with. True or bluff? Oh. Ah, well done. Bullseye, stick of charcoal, that's what it is. We'll get on with another word. And here we have Mipe. Patrick, you start.
It's used in Norfolk. And so many other things are used in Norfolk. If you want to cut reeds with dry feet, maybe you can put a pair of welly boots on. But if you left your Wellingtons at home and you go a reading, you get this huge long pole with kind of sickle-shaped blade on the end of it. Shove it into the water, pull it back, 6 inches below the level of the water, and a huge, lovely bundle of cut reeds in Norfolk.
Splendid idea.
Always.
Yes, Norfolk. Bear that in mind. Ian.
A mipe is a Welsh parsnip. But it's important to remember that it is not a wild parsnip or an untamed parsnip. It's a very common or garden, quiet, gentle, little domestic Welsh parsnip. That's what it is.
Yes. Nice and neat. See all that, Sinead?
Well, a mipe is an amount of corn that's given as a reward to a volunteer harvester, somebody who says he'll help with the harvest. And the amount varies from place to place, from county to county, the amount of corn that's given as a reward. But I do know for a fact that in Glastonbury, in Somerset, that there is a saying in Glastonbury, in Somerset, that the amount is as much corn as a volunteer can hold on his middle finger and raise as high as his knee.
That's another sort of panel game, too. Anyway, the parsnip. Payment of corn to someone who just said he'd lend a hand, and a reed-cutting instrument. Frank?
I couldn't understand Miss Sinead's thing about the finger full of corn.
Well, lift it up, you know.
The
Balance
amount
it.
you can...
It'd have to be very heavy.
Well, on the end of your finger?
Yeah, that's
on
why
your
you
middle
wouldn't get it
finger.
higher than your knee.
Little sack.
You know.
Sack, remember
No,
sacks?
yes.
A gammy sack.
No, Paddy.
It's all in there somewhere.
May I pass on? We can dismiss the parsnip. I mean, that's rubbish. But on the other hand, my colleague and I were having a debate about this. Now, there you are in your bare feet, and you've got this long pole with a sickle on the end. You cut the willows, the reeds. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you get them out?
They float.
Well, that doesn't make sense. No, you've revealed yourself as an imposter. So it must be the Welsh parsnip.
The parsnip, and you sneered at that to begin with, but how? Let's see whether he chose well. Ian Ogilvy. True or...
What's wrong with my little lot?
Yes, what was wrong with the reed cutter?
You cut the reeds and they fall into the water. It wouldn't work, would
Yes,
it?
I suppose they would.
Don't lurk around with me if you don't mean it, dear.
He'll show you his reed cutter in the dressing room afterwards, I dare say. The other information. Anyway, that rather brings us to the end, as you probably guessed, because we're all nattering on and not doing anything particular. So, the score standing at, 6-2, I declare that Frank Muir's team has won. No doubt you want to shed a tear or clap a hand for the poor old losers, Patrick Campbell. So next week, I dare say, we'll have a red flag walking in front of all those definitions yet again. Until then, goodbye from Miles Kington, Ian Ogilvy, Penelope Keith, Sinead Cusack, Frank Muir, Patrick Campbell, and goodbye. Yes, this is Call My Bluff, featuring the old Hibernian brush salesman, Patrick Campbell.
Good evening. Tonight I'm 103 after last week's inconceivable disaster. Fortunately, my two aides have got younger, even lovelier than ever. The first one is Sinead Cusack. And the other one, with the brain packed in ice, is Ian Ogilvy.
And the man in the celluloid bow tie, Frank Muir.
And we, modest in victory, return with our triumphant team. First from The Good Life, delicious and very funny Penny Keith. And back comes instant sunshine himself from the worlds of literature and music, Miles Kington.
I'll give you a word by ringing this bell. And, well, two for the price of one. Hotty totty is the first word. And, as you may recall, Patrick Campbell on this occasion and his team are going to define hotty totty three different ways. Two are false, two of the definitions are false, one is true. That's the one that Frank and co try and pick out. So, what about hotty totty, Patrick?
Do I have your attention?
Yes.
Thank you. Called hotty totty is a kind of curry-type stew, but without the curry powder.
You've lost the attention.
Hotty totty is a kind of curry-type stew without the curry powder, much favoured by the poorer people in the southern states of the United States of America. It's made of uncured bacon, peas, not P-E-A-S, but P-E-A-S-E, and rice. Leave out the curry powder, but sprinkle it liberally with red pepper. This is why it's also called Hopping John.
I should think so.
Right, Ian Ogilvy tells us a thing.
It's a sleeping bag. It's a World War I officer's sleeping bag. And it was called a hotty totty. It was a jokey perversion of the maker's name. And the maker's name was Messrs. Horton and Tothill of Houndsditch, London. It's a sleeping bag.
Right, sleeping bag, you say. Sinead, what do you say?
Well, I think the best way to explain what a hotty totty is to tell you that it's exactly the same thing as a hoddy noddy. And a hoddy noddy, as you probably know, is a very simple-minded, easy-going man who allows himself quite happily to be henpecked and persecuted by his womenfolk. So, in fact, you could say that a hotty totty is very much your average man.
Yep. Well, now, it's it's a sleeping bag. It's a peppery sort of a dish, and it's a henpecked husband. And, Frank, you're going to have to choose.
I would turn to Paddy's hot soup. I'll just lie dangling there in your memory for a few moments. A sleeping bag, I don't think a World War officer would be seen dead sleeping in something called a hotty totty. I think Debs did that thing of Gary Harry for Grosvenor House. I wouldn't have thought it went right back to the First World War. The hoddy noddy is very worrying. So I think we've got to come back to Paddy's rotten soup.
That's the one you're going to choose, Frank?
Yeah.
You're going to have that. All right. Patrick, you said it. True or bluff?
It's the most serious error you've made in weeks.
Oh, no. What has nothing whatever to do with pepper and all like that. Someone will now tell us what the true definition of the word was. Here it comes.
Oh,
yes, indeed. It's a sort of a henpecked chap. 1-0, and we get Nanette. Frank, your turn.
Nanette, little silver coin, which was abrogated by Henry II in the middle of the 12th century, and he abrogated them terribly well because there are virtually none left. If you get one of these little Nanettes in your change up the supermarket, you'll be very, very rich indeed.
Yes. Miles, what do you say?
Well, Monet is what the Americans call the French painter Monet, but we won't go into that.
Well, we've got time.
No, I just thought I'd tell you. I mean,
I think.
try and, A monnet is really an Australian word, a New South Wales word, and is used for a sort of jasper pebble found in the mining area of New South Wales. And the coal that comes out of the mining area of New South Wales is screened very carefully for monnet for two reasons. One, because it's a rather attractive pinkish mottled pebble and is used as a sort of semi-precious jewel. And the other reason is that if you put it in your fireplace along with the coal, it tends to explode, and it's no fun being bombarded by semi-precious jewels.
No.
Some fun, anyway.
Not a lot, really. Anyway, but Penelope, tell us a thing.
Well, a monnet is a person who is physically the opposite of Mr. Spock in Star Trek, because it's someone with small, underdeveloped ears. And a very learned physiognomist, writing in the 17th century, gave as his opinion that a monnet, a person with small ears, signified nothing but mischief and malice.
Well, none of the chaps seem in much danger of that here. It's a people with one with small ears. It's a nice sort of pebble, and it's a silver coin. Patrick?
I think not even New South Wales take the trouble to mine precious. I suppose to put them in the fire so that it can blow your head off. It's a fairly elaborate process, that one.
No, by accident. It came with a coal, if you don't
I
pick
think
it out.
moment. A coin. It sounds so like a coin, doesn't it? It's small ears, really.
Small ears. Now, that was Penelope. I wonder, was she telling us the truth?
A bit smug there.
She was! A monnet is a chap or a woman with small ears. That's what it is. 2-0. Well, well. Lerping is the next word, and Ian Ogilvy defines it.
Lerping. That's a lerping. I will go into it further if you like, but it's...
Do it again.
Right. It usually accompanies an expression such as, a fig for you, sir, or fiddle-dee-dee. It's a very rude gesture. It's a very contemptuous gesture. It's Victorian. I suppose it's the Victorian equivalent of Harvey Smith.
And now it's Sinead's go.
Well, a lerping is a gate that doesn't have hinges. It's a gate that you have to lift up rather than swing open in order to get through it. You have to lift it up. And these, in fact, you can find them all over the place, but they were very common once upon a time in Cambridgeshire, where they were standard means of access to fens or dikes or the like.
Yep.